What's up, guys? So today I'm just going to do a quick tutorial of a camera slider that I made. This works for me for a few reasons. One, I can make this as long as I want because I'm using PVC pipe as my rails. You can make it as long as you want for really cheap. Two, I didn't have to cut any metal, which is nice because I don't have those tools. And three, I found all of these materials either at the hardware store, the thrift store, or on Amazon. The only thing I found on Amazon were these ball bearings, which were super cheap, and the only thing that I found at the thrift store was the tripod head mount for the camera. Other than that, all these parts came from the local hardware store. Whole thing probably cost me 25 bucks maximum. So it's a pretty cheap project, and a slider really helps make your videos just look better, add some movement. Let's just talk about the rails here really quick. I have 4 feet of PVC pipe for the rails. I have 3 blocks of wood to connect them all, and the way that I connected the wood to the PVC pipes was through 2 screws on each side of the wood. The way I made it flush with itself is that I butted it up against a right angle, a wall. I just drilled 2 holes and to make sure it was perfectly flush and the same distance between each rail. These blocks right here are 5 and 5/16 inches. The reason for that is that I had to adjust the rails to fit the car. So I built this first and I made these to fit this. So let's talk about the camera slider really quick. Fairly simple here. Let me take off the tripod head, the sides here. I have 4 1.5 inch bolts connected to a mending plate right here, held onto the block of wood by 2 screws each. So I have the bolt, a nut to hold the bolt in place, ball bearing, then I have a locking nut to hold the whole thing onto the plate. Those are the load bearing ball bearings that actually hold the camera up and make it slide smoothly on the PVC pipe. Down below, I have 4 more sets of ball bearings, and these prevent the slider from going sideways when you're rolling it up and down. So the construction of these, I drilled a hole for the 2.5 inch bolt. The hole is approximately placed 1 inch down from the top part here of the block and 1/2 inch from the side here. I have a spacing nut on these. When I was testing it, I found that the ball bearing wasn't actually touching the rail, so I had to add a spacer. And you can use like washers or anything you want. After this nut, I have another nut to tighten down the bolt, then I have the ball bearing, and then I have a locking nut to make sure that the whole assembly doesn't fall apart. So in total, I have 8 locking nuts, 8 regular nuts, 4 mending plates, 4 1.5 inch bolts, 4 2.5 inch bolts for the bottom here, 4 spacers. In my case I use nuts, but you could use a washer or anything else you want. 8 screws to hold the mending plates onto the block. So for the centerpiece, to hold the tripod mount, I just have a larger bolt and a nut and a washer. And I just drilled a hole through the center of the block of wood, and I sunk it to make the bolt flush with the bottom of the block of wood here. The thrift store had a tripod, just a regular tripod, that I was able to attach to the bolt. And I didn't make the bolt tight, or that nut tight on the bolt. That way I can still move the tripod head mount around smoothly. Your biggest expense probably is going to be able to find something to hold your camera in. You can probably go cheap by just getting a 1/4-20 bolt and just using that, putting a hole and just mounting your camera to that. So a 1/4-20 is what your camera threads are usually. Or you can go on Amazon, try to find a tripod head mount. I just got lucky, found one at the thrift store that worked. Up to you. So a quick trick that I found is that when I was moving the slider manually, it kind of introduced some jitteriness to it. So I found that if I took a string, attached it to one of the mending plates, ran it underneath the slider, and then I attached a thumbtack on the end here. I put the string under the thumbtack, and that way I'm able to move the slider without actually having to touch it, which is really helpful when you're trying to take slow, steady shots. I know this wasn't a step-by-step build of the slider. That's all the main components you used, and really it's just about your own ingenuity. Your materials might be a little bit different than mine. And as long as you have the main components, then you're going to have a fantastic slider that's going to do the job wonderfully. Make sure you subscribe, there's going to be more videos coming, and I hope that you guys go out there and use your slider and make some great videos.